Hey, what's up everybody? Today I want to talk about one of my favorite race car drivers of all time, Davey Allison. Davey Allison had quite the NASCAR Cup career. He ran a part-time schedule from 1985 to 1987, and in 1987 he actually scored 2 wins, his first coming at his home track of Talladega Superspeedway. He scored 19 total career victories and made a huge mark on the sport before he was tragically killed in a helicopter crash in July of 1993. This came as a huge shock to the NASCAR community. Not just because we lost one of our rising stars, but because just 3 months prior, we lost Kulwicki, the reigning champion. Just like that, in the span of about 100 days, NASCAR lost 2 of its biggest stars. And in 1993, NASCAR was in a very uncertain situation. Richard Petty, David Pearson, Cale Yarborough, the Allison brothers, all the other heavy hitters that had made the sport what it was, they had all retired. No one knew who Jeff Gordon was yet. Darrell Waltrip and Dale Earnhardt were in their 40s and they were on their way out. We were all left wondering who would go on to hold the torch for us throughout the 90s. NASCAR was seemingly lost at that one dark moment. And what made it even harder to swallow was the fact that in 1992, we all thought Davey Allison was indestructible.
There has never been a race team that had more highs and more lows than we had in 1992. We would win one week, wreck the next. By the time we got to the Sprint All-Star race, we figured out how to do both on the same night.
He'd be all right. You know, like, yeah, he's fine. He's made out of rubber or something. I don't know, he keeps coming back.
Because he just pancaked the whole left side of the car and actually cracked his helmet.
Oh, and he's upside down.
If y'all want to see it, I'll show them to you, but it's ugly.
Coming to the strike. Morgan comes to the inside, and Davey Allison is going to win the Daytona 500. Here comes Morgan down to the line. Davey Allison first. Morgan Shepherd gets it all back there. Has he got anything left? Coming to the stripe. Morgan comes to the inside, and Davey Allison is going to win the Daytona 500. The Alabama gang has done it again. The son of a great champion at this track, Bobby Allison. Davey Allison victorious in the 34th annual Daytona 500.
Davey Allison's 1992 season started off about as well as it possibly could for anyone. He won the first race of the season, the biggest race of the season, the Daytona 500. Just 4 years prior, he had finished second to his father, Bobby Allison, and this time he got to take the checkered flag for himself. His next several races would also go just about as good. Rockingham, second. Richmond, fourth. Atlanta, fourth. Darlington, fourth. Going into the 6th race of the season at Bristol, Davey was clear and out the favorite to win the championship that year. Back then, the champion was decided by whoever had the most points at the conclusion of the final race. There was no chase, no cutoff, no reset, no eliminations or knockouts back then. Every race mattered. And Davey had just finished the first 5 races in a row without ever falling out of the top 4. But he couldn't just coast out for the rest of the season either, because at this point there had only been 2 winners all year. Well, Davey Allison had only won 1 race, so that meant yep, the other guy had won the last 4 straight. He had someone hot on his heels, and that someone was none other than the 1988 champion, Bill Elliott, and his car owner, Junior Johnson. If there was ever a kingmaker in NASCAR at that time, it was Junior Johnson. The man had 50 career wins as a driver and 6 championship titles as a car owner. Back then, if Junior Johnson picked you to drive his car, you were pretty much guaranteed to win a bunch of races and maybe even have a shot at a championship. Bill Elliott at the time had been voted the most popular driver in the sport 6 times, and he had 34 victories going into the 1992 season. After the first 5 races, he had brought that number up to 38. Davey Allison, on the other hand, was a relatively young driver with a relatively young team, Robert Yates Racing. They had won a slew of races together and finished 3rd in the points in the previous year, and they were poised to give Junior Johnson and Bill Elliott a real challenge. But in that 6th week, disaster struck. He took a hard hit into the outside wall at Bristol and was visibly hurt. The team would cobble the car back together, and he would race out to finish 28th out of 32 cars. Bill Elliott would finish 20th, so Davey would hold on to his narrow points lead. But after the race, it was revealed that he had 2 cracked ribs. The next race was just 1 week later at North Wilkesboro, another short track. Rookie that year, Jimmy Hensley had practiced and qualified the car, and the plan was for Davey to start the race and for the team to swap drivers at the first opportunity. It's still a rule in NASCAR that if you start a race, even if you get replaced later on, you get credited with a win and the finishing position of whatever that replacement driver gets. You could technically go out, pull 1 lap, have the best driver in the garage sub in for you, and then have him go out and win the race, and that counts as a victory for you in the NASCAR record books. Jimmy Hensley stood in the pits all day on that unseasonably warm day in April, decked out in full fire suit and with a helmet on, sweltering in the heat, waiting all day for Davey Allison to come in and saying that he had had enough. Except after about 70 laps, Larry McReynolds, Davey Allison's crew chief, says to Jimmy Hensley, "We thank you for all you've done today, but I think Davey Allison's going to finish this race." And he did. Now, it's impressive enough that Davey completed the race with 2 cracked ribs, but he didn't just do that. He won the darn thing. With his legs cramping up and his crew only able to give him fluids during the seldom few pit stops during the race, he nabbed his 2nd victory of the year, and Bill Elliott finished 20th again, further cementing his lead on the points. Martinsville, another short track, comes up. Davey takes another bad hit and totals another car. When interviewed about the crash later, he admitted that he had further compounded his 2 cracked ribs with now a bruised lung. The next week, his home track and the site of his first win, Talladega, and he decides he's going to go ahead and win that one too, right after getting a bruised lung. Now a worrisome pattern starts to emerge. Checkers or wreckers, win or crash. Some drivers just have this habit, this quirk some seasons, where they are either winning or spinning. They go through a feast or famine season, and now the only thing left to do is to try and outrun their bad luck. And that's what Davey Allison and his team tried to do. And in the following race, the All-Star race, they learned how to wreck and win at the same time.
Davey Allison coming up, but I don't think will be a factor. Kyle just hauls it off the corner. He's got the inside. He's up to Earnhardt's bumper. Earnhardt takes it.
They're off the racing service down on the flat part of the racetrack. Look out.
And it's Kyle Petty. Kyle Petty coming to the checkered flag. Here comes Davey Allison to the bottom. It'll be the finish everybody was waiting for. They crashed past the finish line. They have crashed into turn number 1. And Davey Allison is in a shower of sparks.
He won the race, but he sure paid the price for it.
Davey hit the outside wall driver's side first, and he hit the wall with such force that his head physically hit the concrete wall and cracked his helmet open, leaving him with a severe concussion. On the ride to the hospital, he is completely out of it. He keeps asking Larry McReynolds what happened over and over and over again. Every time Larry Mack would say, "You won, but you crashed, and it was really bad, you got knocked out." Davey Allison would say, "Wow, that's crazy." And then he would doze away, only to ask the exact same question again a few moments later. Davey Allison never went to victory lane that night, but his car and car owner did, which led to quite a few odd and awkward victory lane photos being taken. The next week is the 600, the longest race of the year, also at Charlotte Motor Speedway. If this situation had happened today, there is absolutely no way NASCAR would have ever let Davey race the following week. They would have sat him out for several weeks and have him go to their doctor to see if he was okay to race. But back before CTE was a thing, Davey climbed back into his black 28 and finished 4th. 2 cracked ribs, a bruised lung, and a severe concussion are enough to gain the admiration of anyone watching this video right now, but we're not done yet. Davey goes into the summer stretch while still having the points lead, and in fact, he's held on to the points lead every single race since winning the Daytona 500 to start off the season back in February. Despite his bad luck, Bill Elliott has had worse luck. Davey Allison wins at Michigan in dominating fashion in June, leading 158 out of 200 laps. He's starting to get a real upswing going, 5th at Pocono, 10th at Daytona for the 400, but during the second Pocono race, that all changes.
Right on the bumper, of course, there right now. How long can he do that? Rusty gets out of the way now, Cotton Petty.
Tame is, and he's upside down. Into the guardrail, side over side, end over end, and Davey Allison has experienced a horrifying crash.
Davey Allison is flown out of the speedway to the hospital. Larry Mack and Robert Yates, the car owner, meet up with him in the medical center, and it's not good. He has a broken wrist and a broken forearm. But even worse looking than that is the swelling from the intense G-forces he took from the flip. His face is swollen so bad that his friends and family can barely see his eyes. And according to Larry Mack, if you looked at him straight on, you couldn't even see his ears. Even more grisly is that he has popped several blood vessels in his eyes, leaving them bloodshot red. Davey dismisses Larry Mack and Robert Yates, telling them to pack their stuff and head back to Charlotte to get their next car ready for the next race. Talladega again. He finishes third. No backup driver, no nothing. He runs the entire race and gets the points lead back. He would go on to lose it the next week at Watkins Glen with a bad finish of 20th. After that, he basically goes eye for eye with Bill Elliott. Neither of them can get a leg up over the other, or even really put together a good string of finishes. For every top 5 or top 10 they get, they each finish outside the top 15 or wreck. All the while, a young upstart named Kulwicki is closing in on them bit by bit, just hacking away with consistent top 10s. Bill Elliott has a terrible stretch in October, and going into the second to last race of the season, the best thing that could happen for Davey happens. He wins his 5th race of the year at Phoenix Raceway, while Bill Elliott finishes outside the top 30. Our hindsight of events that played out during the last race in 1992 have skewed our perception of how things were playing out at the time. Everyone remembers Kulwicki running down Bill Elliott and just nudging him out for the championship, so you might think it was basically a dead heat between the two of them in the points, right? Wrong. Davey Allison has the points lead for the first time since the summer stretch. That's right, Davey is leading the points going into the final race. I also think it's worth mentioning that because of Davey and Bill's lack of consistency and Allen's lack of victories, there are 3 other drivers with a mathematical shot at the championship. We're going into the last race of the season with 6 guys who could be champ. If the top 3 crash out, it's basically a crapshoot between Mark Martin, Harry Gant, and Kyle Petty. The 1992 Hooters 500 at Atlanta Motor Speedway is jam-packed with high tension from one end to the other. I could go on for an hour just talking about this one race alone, but for today, let's just talk about Davey Allison's race. Davey has to finish 5th or better to clinch the championship. No matter what Allen or Bill do, a 5th place finish cinches it for Davey. However, Davey gets the rear end of his car scuffed up on a wreck on the first lap. It's not much, but it's enough to slow them down to a 10th place car. Meanwhile, Allen and Bill are running 1-2 all day long. Davey has another problem later. The crew of the brand new number 24 car, headed by a young Jeff Gordon making his very first start, have left a roll of duct tape on the deck lid of their car.
It just was, man, it was a tough day because we left a roll of duct tape on the deck lid and it fell off on the track and Davey Allison hit it.
They have been told that there may be a problem with the car.
The crew of the 28 makes a green flag pit stop to fix the damage, and they get everything squared away. After some mid-race shuffling on a long green flag stint, they are running in 5th place, right where they need to be, when disaster strikes.
Best time to do it. But for the last 3 years here, he has earned more points.
Oh, look out. Davey Allison is in the crash bomb. Oh, Ernie Irvin, and it's all over for Davey Allison.
No, it's not over yet. I don't think he hit him that hard, maybe.
Well, he hit pretty well, I think.
He's got a lot of damage to the right side of the car.
Ernie Irvin spinning, coming off of corner number 4.
Davey has got his car moving.
Yeah, he's trying to pull away.
But he can't steer it.
But it won't turn.
It won't turn. The right front will not work.
And just like that, Davey Allison's 1992 championship quest is over. All the injuries, all the wrecked cars, all the heartbreak, and they come up just short. Davey Allison's season is over. Well, not quite. He and his crew make it a matter of pride to finish the race. They rip everything down, fix the steering, and send the car back out to limp around for the last few laps. They finish the race and finish the season, bruised, battered, and beaten, sitting in 3rd in points when it's all said and done. 1992 would be the last full season for both Davey Allison and the eventual champion that year, Kulwicki. The 1992 Daytona 500 winner and the 1992 series champion, respectively, would die in aircraft accidents just a few months apart from one another. Perhaps then it's oddly fitting that the 2 biggest stars won the 2 biggest prizes that year. They will forever be remembered for those accomplishments that year, and hopefully with this video I can help in some small way to build up their legacy. They deserve it, and they were taken from the racing world just way too soon. Anyway, I'm Slapshoes. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. Peace.